Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers pregame presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me tonight, we've got Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor, joining us for pre and post. It's always fun when we have Charlie in studio. This nice little run they've been on of no long road trips or anything. So it's a pleasure, Charlie, to have you once again for pre and post.
Good to be here, Bill.
Yeah, the Flyers are in Long Island tonight, taking on.
You refuse to say on.
I don't play their games. No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not how we. I don't care. It's not my problem. Anyway, Flyers playing the dreadful New York Islanders tonight out there in whatever the hell new arena is called, and we have. UBS or something?
It's UBS.
Yeah.
I am loving the sheer disdain that you are treating the New York Islanders with. Not even them, their locale, their arena. You are just completely dismissive of this team, and I kind of love it.
Charlie, it's a Thursday night. It's snowing. I got to watch the freaking Islanders, and we'll talk about how bad they are in just a couple of minutes. But we do have some lineup notes for the people tonight,
Joel Farabee,
as reported earlier.
Back.
Yeah, as reported earlier, and we guessed they lost, and Lycksell hasn't exactly knocked down the door. Yeah. So Joel Farabee's coming back in, and he is. We get Joel Farabee. It appears, at least based on morning skate, he's going to be just kind of jumping into that Coots and Michkov line. I like it. I still want to flip Brink and Mish, but we'll get there, I'm sure, by the second period. So it's everything else remains the same. Frost with Tippett and TK. Cates, Forster, Brink stays together. Farabee jumps in for Lycksell with Mish and Coots, and then Lawton, Paling, Hathaway's your fourth line. And I assume D pairs will remain the same as well.
Think, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of what we have. These are the pairs.
Right.
All right. So Charlie, you just asked me if I heard Torts' morning skate availability today. I did not, and there were some interesting notes about the Farabee jumping back in thing that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, well, I think what was most interesting actually was what he said about Lycksell.
Yeah.
But the Farabee stuff, if you're talking specifically about him, he wants to see him just be more active. He felt like Farabee, for a long time, even when he wasn't scoring, Farabee was doing stuff, for lack of a better way to describe it. He was making his presence known. He was creating chances. He was doing things. Over the maybe week and a half, 2 weeks leading up to the scratching, I guess aside from that fight that he started to juice momentum and get the guys going, aside from that, I think he just felt like Farabee was fading into the background a little bit too much and still wasn't scoring. So then it was a combination of the two. Okay, you're going to sit down. He just wants Farabee. Obviously, he wants to see the goals, and he's hoping that if he gets a couple, then maybe the other parts of his game will come in because his confidence will go up. But at the very least, he just wants them to be noticeable. So from Farabee's standpoint, yeah, I'm curious to see what Joel Farabee does because we have yet to see how he responds to a John Tortorella benching. Now, we've seen how he responds to being benched 2 shifts into a game. We've seen how he responds to, getting dropped to the fourth line. We've seen those things, but he's never quite went nuclear with Farabee yet. And I want to see if he comes out there and, delivers. I'm kind of looking for the performance that Morgan Frost gave last season in January, where Frost came out there, was impactful that first game after he marched into Tortorella's office and apparently caught his attention for the first time in his life. I want to see that kind of response from Joel Farabee, and I'm sure he wants to deliver that kind of response. It's just a matter of whether he can.
We'll see if he can, and it seemed as if, you just called it going nuclear with Farabee, and it's not as if this came out of nowhere.
No.
He tried so many other things. It was, all right, you know what? Let's put him on the first line left wing and see how it goes. Let's just see how this goes because he's been close, and like you said, he was creating chances. He was getting there. It just looked like a matter of time at one point for Farabee, and then it just never happened, and that's when the play really dipped. He gets demoted down, but he's still in the power play. They put him on the penalty kill just to maybe just give him.
They were trying.
They tried everything.
Yeah.
It seemed like we joke all the time, Torts woke up today and said, let's scratch Morgan Frost. So that's what they did.
In case of emergency, bench Morgan Frost.
It's
his favorite button.
It's his favorite thing, but that's not really what it seemed like with Farabee. He was he knows he needs him on this team as a top 6 forward, but Farabee has to come through. And after trying all these different things, it was, we got to look at somebody else.
I have to think that part of it, and this is just a theory of mine more than anything, I have to think that part of it is that, like, comparing him to, say, Morgan Frost. I don't think Danny Briere is done with Morgan Frost, but I think John Tortorella has a pretty good idea what he is and what he isn't. And it's kind of like, look, we play him because he's on the roster and I like him personally and he obviously has some skill, but I don't need to figure anything more out about this guy. I think John Tortorella thinks he has him pegged. He knows what Morgan Frost is. I don't think John Tortorella feels like he yet knows what to make of Joel Farabee, which is why he wants to keep throwing him out there as much as possible so that Farabee either makes his case in favor of himself or makes it clear that he just can't be a part of this. I get the sense that John Tortorella he's more where I am with Joel Farabee rather than where you are. Whereas you're kind of like, I think he is what he is. Get rid of him at the end of the season. I just don't see a fit. Where I'm at with Farabee is if he hasn't shown me anything by the end of this season, then I might be right there with you. But I still see enough in him, enough there that he perhaps could change the narrative. And I think that's where Tortorella's at with him. He wants to see Farabee change the narrative about him as a player before it's too late. Whereas I think with Morgan Frost, at least from Torts' perspective, he knows what he is.
And just in terms of like the conversation we had yesterday, like how Morgan Frost was the first name we brought up. I don't see a scenario in which if the Flyers are to move on from him, he goes and becomes a 60-point player. Like, yeah, maybe like he goes to Edmonton and suddenly he's on the left wing with McDavid. Yeah, sure. Because, sure.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I don't really see it. I could see a scenario where Joel Farabee is like the third guy on a really deep team's top line. Yeah. Like, we're going to load up our third line as well. And so we're going to move. Yeah. Like, I can see.
Yeah, he might be like the 5th or 6th best forward, but he's on a line with McDavid.
Plays 18 minutes a game.
He's on a line with McKinnon or something.
I see that scenario as feasible with Joel Farabee. Yeah. I really do. I just need it to have happened here already. These aren't guys we're talking about that are prospects still. Joel Farabee has been around since the pandemic season. Like, I know everything feels like a century ago and also a month ago,
right?
But that was a little while ago. And while he's shown us some highs, a large majority of these last 3 seasons have kind of just been meh from Joel Farabee. And listen, we'll see. I'm not given the term, and listen, if he finishes this season with, on this 26-point pace he's on, and
then I might be where you are. And I'm just not there yet, and I don't think Torts is there yet either.
I'm not ready to just be like, get rid of him now, the way I am with Morgan Frost. Like, who could do what Morgan Frost is doing from an offensive standpoint? Scott Laughton. Just play him back at center. But Joel Farabee, like, he is his player type. His production isn't, but his player type is top 6 left wing. That is something we do not have. like in terms of an actual left winger.
Left shooting
left winger. We are converting a couple of righties, natural right wingers over to the left side, and it's at varying degrees of success. But I just hope Farabee can get it going for any number of reasons. Whether we trade him, keep him, he just needs to be so much freaking better. Maybe it starts tonight. Maybe he has this response that we're always looking for. Yeah. Ersson starting tonight. Sam Ersson. Oh, no, let's get to the Lycksell stuff.
Oh, yeah, let's get the Lycksell stuff. Sure.
So Lycksell comes out.
Yes.
And he's been playing on that left wing with michkov and Couturier.
Yeah, and that's where Farabee will slide right into.
And that's where Farabee's sliding into tonight. I wanted to give Lycksell a shot. He didn't exactly impress, and I think Torts is in the same place with him as well.
Yeah, he was asked before this game, morning skate, after or before, I'm not sure. I'm obviously not there, but I watched the video. He more or less was asked with Lycksell, because he had pointed out earlier on in the interview that he had shown some tape of that Couturier, Lycksell, michkov line of an example of what he wants to see offensively from lines that aren't the Cates line, which is the one line he seems very happy with. And then Jackie justifiably was like, well, you seems like you're speaking positively about that line. Is the only reason why Lycksell is coming out is because you want to get Farabee back in? And he said no. He said Lycksell pushed his way out of the lineup because he didn't like some of the things he was doing, namely play along the boards. Said he had a couple bad turnovers in the third period when they're trying to, when they're trying to protect the lead, but I believe it was when it was 1-1. It was before the typical. So he said there was enough there for me to pull him out of the lineup, and he obviously doesn't have. George straight up said this. He said, yeah, obviously Lycksell doesn't have a long leash because he's not an established NHL player, but he did speak as if these are things that we're going to have to work on with him. And it wasn't spoken in the sense of, well, these are things you might have to work on back down there once we send him back down if Farabee carves out his spot back again. It seemed like they were saying that we might be past the point of him learning in the AHL, that maybe this is now when, whether he's playing or not, whether he's the 13th forward or whether he's playing on a nightly basis, that the rest of the developmental process with Lycksell is going to happen up at the NHL level. And that's interesting because he's never really gotten a, 2-month leash of just being here, whether he's playing or not. And I'm fine with it because I'm of the opinion with Lycksell that I don't think he can learn anything else down there. He's 25 going on 26. I believe he turns 26 this summer.
August, yeah.
This summer, yeah. He's a point per game guy in the AHL. He is what he is down there. He's excelling down there. You send him down there. It's not like you have to wait a week for him to start scoring again. He's going to start scoring because he's an excellent AHL player. Now you want to develop him up here. And even if he's not playing on a nightly basis, I kind of like the implication from Tortorella that the rest of his learning process is going to happen at the NHL level rather than the AHL level, because I think he's done down there.
No, and you look at, he's like 25 and a half. His first year, 2022-23 in the AHL, 45 points in 53 games. Last season, 39 and 38. I think he's at like 24 points in 25 games this year.
Yeah.
He's a point-a-game AHL player.
That's what he is.
If it's the things Tortorella are pointing out, like winning board battles, just being tougher, learning the NHL speed and strength and what you have to do to be successful here, especially if you're not going to be a top 6 forward, which... Listen, he was a 6th round pick in 2017. I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
This is how you're going to stick here. Well, you can't learn that playing against inferior competition in the AHL. You need to be playing above where you were if you're going to get better at those things. So it makes sense, especially while this team only has 12 other healthy forwards with Nick Deslauriers out. Not that those two are really comparable, but you only have 12. Might as well have an extra guy here.
Yeah, why not? Why not try to teach him up here? You're carrying 3 goalies anyway, so it's not as if you need the roster spot at the moment. You've got enough. Keep him up. And, I would, let me put it this way. I hope that Joel Farabee makes it clear he shouldn't come out of the lineup again because I'm hoping he steps up to respond to this challenge of being healthy scratch for 3 games. But regardless whether it's him or somebody else or somebody gets injured, I like the idea of Lycksell being the guy that maybe for the rest of the season they just find things out about. And hey, I'm not convinced he's an NHL player, but I feel like he's never gotten a long enough look for me to know for sure that he's not. And I'd like to see him get that, whether it's in practice, whether it's in games, whether it's a bit of both. This is the time to figure out whether he's a guy who maybe could be a part of this, or if he's a guy who you just let go when his contract's up and then he becomes some other team's Anthony Richard.
And that's fine. Listen, that's what you do. That's what I was going on about for the last 2 shows. Let's not waste the time.
Yeah.
It's like, if there's a reason to take Joel Farabee out of the lineup, do it and give someone else a look. Now, it was 3 games and didn't love what we saw, but that's information.
Yeah.
And it's at least a starting point for Lycksell to okay, and this is what I have to work on to get back in the lineup. Between now and a month and a half from now is going to be at least warming up to be trade season. Guys could be coming out. There's always injuries. Whenever we start thinking, okay, this is the lineup, well, then 2 guys get hurt and we're looking for someone else to fill those spots. Might as well keep him around and see if he can figure out a way to stick. I'm interested in seeing how this all plays out. Sam Ersson in net tonight. We figured that would be the case.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see. I'm not going to go too far ahead, but obviously the Flyers play again on Saturday. If Ersson struggles, they probably go to Fedotov. If Ersson plays well tonight, though, do they go to Fedotov or do they just roll with Ersson? That might give us a read on how they plan to deploy the goalies the rest of the way, at least through the 4 Nations tournament, because we talked about it yesterday. We talked about a plausible 7-5 split, maybe an 8-4 split. Obviously, if Ersson struggles, I would assume he's not going to get the next game. But if he plays either well or at least fine, whether he plays on Saturday will go a long way towards, shedding light on how they plan to distribute the time, at least through the middle of February when the break happens.
All right, before we get to the second half of this pregame show brought to you by Bet365, let me tell you about one of our partners here, Rothman Orthopedics. Do you have joints aching? Are your hands cramping? Is your back out of whack? Well, then Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, they've been practicing specialized care for 50 years. It has been their passion for 5 decades, and their mission, it's high-quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research. Research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser-focused on their specialty, whether it's hip, knee, spine, you name it. They have a team for each body part right in your backyard so you can get back to your specialties because they're Rothman Orthopedics and they specialize in you. Rothman Orthopedics, specializing in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. I want to take a look at this playoff picture right now because wild card race, wild indeed, Charlie. We just looking at this thing, it very, very jumbled. Just looking at the way it's sorted. If you go by total points, we have Boston in the first wild card spot, Columbus in the second. If you flip over to points percentage, it's actually Ottawa, Columbus, Montreal, Boston. But right now it's Bruins with 49, Blue Jackets with 48, Sens 47, Habs 46. 3 teams, including the Flyers, with 44. Rangers, 43. Isles at 41, last place in the Metro. And then there are those Sabres down there at 39. It's just a freaking mess. And even the way the Flyers, they did win those 2 in a row. They have 5 of the last 6 points. That's great. But they just have to jump so many teams, even though it looks, 4 points, man. They're 2 games out. They are going to need to get some sustained goaltending in order to actually make a run at this thing. Yeah. It's so jumbled and weird. The league loves this, but I wish there was a little bit more line of delineation between good and bad teams.
Yeah, well, even the big thing here, and you look at these numbers, do I think the Buffalo Sabres are going to make the playoffs? No, of course not. I don't. They've been a dumpster fire for years, but they're not that far out of it, and they're the worst team in the East by record and by points. So if the worst team still has a shot, then everybody still has a shot.
Yeah, that's Buffalo is 9 points out, and they're a laughing stock.
Yeah, everybody's making fun of them, understandably, because this was another year where people thought, hey, maybe they take the leap. But then you compare that to Ottawa, who I feel generally speaking, the narrative around them this year is positive. They're only 8 points ahead of the Sabres.
Yeah.
There aren't, once you get past the top of the heap, in the East especially, then there's just everybody else.
It's 5 teams. We'll see if Tampa can make it an even 6 in the East. And then, this big jumbled mess of 10 other teams that, I don't know, Boston trending down, but Jeremy Swayman's been better. Ottawa trending up, but Linus Ullmark's hurt. So it's going to be this weird thing in the East where it's going to take a more than a run of competence to get it, a real run of incompetence to totally fall out of this thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
The Isles are they're last in so many statistics, and we'll get to that in a minute.
One thing I do think it's going to be very interesting to see as we get closer to March is, with the way the standings are set up this year, how many teams are going to sell? Because everyone still can delude themselves into thinking they have a shot. Are there going to be fewer sellers? Is it going to be a seller's market because there's only 3 or 4 teams that are willing to just straight up say, we're selling off our guys?
That's if you're one of these teams that it's yeah, man, you're Washington from last year. You're the Islanders from last year. You can get in, but you're going to get steamrolled. If you're one of the teams that doesn't have this, we got to get in mentality, and you do sell like the Flyers did last year, there's going to be a good market because so many teams are at this point. We've talked how long about Ottawa just needs to get in. Yeah. Detroit needs to break this streak. Yeah. They aren't going to be sellers. I think they're going to try to be in it. That means there's going to be a ton of buyers. You can make yourself. So we'll see how Danny plays it. I hope he's as smart as he was last year with that. But let's get to the bets, Charlie.
All right.
Let's do it because I got some good ones tonight. This pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older, physically located in PA. If you or someone who knows a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I'm doing something that I never do. I'm taking the Flyers on the money line. I'm taking the Flyers to win straight up tonight at plus 120.
It's a bold strategy.
Listen, it's simply like I get that the Flyers aren't very good. They have the worst goaltending in the league, blah, blah, blah. But they're underdogs tonight. Like, if this was minus 110 each way, like it probably should be, okay, I'll give the Islanders a little bit of credit for being a home team, even though they're not that good at home. But the Flyers are straight up underdogs, plus 120. I'm betting it because they're better than the Islanders. I am certain of that. There aren't many teams I look at and go, Flyers are better. The Islanders are one of them.
Okay.
They're a freaking mess.
I mean, you started this show out by just dismissing the Islanders outright. So, if anything, I appreciate you for staying on brand and on message through the entirety of the pregame show.
Listen, sometimes I will have the emotional hedge, like when I took the Cutter Gauthier anytime goal, but not tonight. The Flyers should and very much can win this game.
It'll give me even more ammunition if they lose for postgame.
Yeah, and that's
to make fun of you.
Listen, I'm all for the content. It's great. Also going to take an Owen Tippett anytime goal at plus 260. Yeah, we're back on this train after it burned me so many times in the first half of the season. And this one is a like he's due kind of play. This is Tippett's 11th career game against the Islanders, and he's never scored a goal against them. Tippett has a goal against every team in the league except Calgary, no points in 6 games. Vancouver, no goals, 1 assist in 6 games. And then the Islanders, who he's played 10 times before. Tonight's the night. I'm just feeling it. I think that top line with Morgan Frost in the middle has kind of gotten a little boost lately. It's been kind of quiet. Tippett, Konechny, so one or the other of them, maybe both score. But I'm going to get that Owen Tippett to get his first career goal against the New York Islanders. I absolutely did look into Joel Farabee. After 3 games scratched, Bet365 does not have Farabee listed in any players markets, or else I definitely would have taken him after the scratches.
So do you hear that disrespect? You're not even on the platform. You got to score now.
Ulla Lycksell still listed. Joel Farabee not. So,
yeah.
Come on, Joel.
Yeah, there we go. This is your chance.
Yeah.
Prove them wrong.
Absolutely. Charlie, I'm going to talk about the Islanders, and I want to talk first about the Flyers' upcoming schedule. Because the Flyers play the Isles 3 times between now and January 30th. It's like 2 weeks.
Yeah. And they play the Devils 3 times.
Yeah, they go at Islanders, at Devils, versus Detroit. They throw a monkey wrench in this whole thing. Then at the Rangers, at the Islanders, home against the Devils, away against the Devils, and then wrap up the month home against the Isles. Flyers are basically on a 15-day battle against the New York City media market, the greater New York area.
And then Detroit.
Teams that play on MSG, plus those...
And the Red Wings.
Plus those Detroit Red Wings. So looking at this, it's kind of funny. And I'm trying to... So this weekend... So we play Detroit... Oh, that would be the week prior, a couple of days prior to what would be an NFC title game, potentially against the Lions. So that could be a fun week, beating up Detroit a couple of times. But I'm just looking at the schedule, and they don't leave the Eastern time zone. They only go as far as Manhattan and Long Island. I am starting to think, I'm just trying to come up with ways to get Michkov going here. Okay. Now, the schedule obviously super condensed. Look at all these games. There's not a ton of days off. Most of the time they have a couple of days off. It's after a back-to-back or something. Given that, there is very little to no travel. Maybe that could be a little refresher going in. They don't leave the Eastern time zone until the first week of February when they go to February when they go to Colorado and Utah. Maybe kind of getting a little routine, not having to get on a plane and go several hours. Maybe that gets them going, a little refresher.
Well, I think Jim Jackson said it during the last broadcast, and it's something I 100% agree with, that this stretch, this run, particularly in the next 2.5 weeks, I guess the game against Colorado and Utah, I guess they matter, but these are the games. This stretch, I think, will decide whether the Flyers are legitimately in the playoff mix going into March, or if they are total pretenders who are just hanging around because the schedule and the standings are so jam-packed. they're playing against division teams. But not only that, right now, this is maybe the best their goalie situation has looked since early November.
That little run in November.
Yeah, maybe, because you got Ersson back and presumably as healthy as he's been, and you got Fedotov playing pretty decent. They play a lot of games in a row. If you can roll off, 4 wins in 5 games, like you can start to build something because there aren't any big gaps. There aren't any road trips to kind of change the feel of games. This would be a moment where not only if you roll off a bunch of wins, it's just good because winning is good for the standings. You're also facing against a lot of teams that are theoretically battling with you for these spots. So there's a lot of potential 4-point nights here, essentially. Yeah. If the Flyers finish this out and they go about 500, they win, they lose, they win, they lose, then this is probably what they are. They're probably just a team that's going to finish, 8 to 12 points out of the final wildcard spot and is going to get a top 10 pick, and that's what they are. And we can work with that.
So be it.
But if they can roll here and they can, go through the end of December, the end of January, and win 8 games, 7 games, something like that, suddenly there could be something building here. This is an opportunity for the Flyers, and it's also on the flip side of it, it's the opportunity for them to show that they just don't deserve the opportunity.
Speaking of don't deserve any sorts of opportunities, Chuck, the New York Islanders. Now, for years,
back to the start.
For years, they have been boring and dreadful to watch,
Accurate.
but at least pretty good, if not going to conference finals.
They had that run, yeah.
Now, they are freaking terrible. In 43 games, they have 41 points. They're 17, 19, and 7, really cashing in on those loser points again. 477 points percentage. They are dead last in the Metro, only ahead of the Sabres in the East.
They love going to overtime and shootouts.
They sure do. Power play, 10.5%. Last year, the Flyers were 12.2, and it was the worst thing imaginable.
Yeah.
This team is well under that.
They're over halfway through the year.
This isn't
a bad
start.
Man.
October was weird. We didn't get that many power plays. We had an injury to our point man. No, this is the whole year. We are 43 games into the season, and they are this bad. Not to be outdone, their penalty kill under 66%, also dead last. Special teams are an absolute embarrassment.
The special teams are killing this team.
Yeah.
Like one general quick, on the napkin math that people would do, maybe not so much anymore because power plays have gotten so much better, but the general idea with special teams was you want to be at least at 100. If you add together the power play efficiency percentage and the penalty kill efficiency percentage, that's where you're shooting for. And then if you're better than that, great. They're at 76. 76. Yes. That's wild.
That's insane. That's 76 isn't a good penalty kill.
No,
that's
it's not.
The power play plus the penalty kill. They are so bad. Goals per game, they've never been a high octane offense, but 29th. They get a decent number of shots, but when you're trailing the whole game, you're going to get some. They're still just middle of the road in goals against. That's been their bread and butter, their goaltending, their defense, how hard they play. It's just shots against the game. They're okay, not good. They are a terrible freaking team. How has it gotten this bad there? They just got old?
That's part of it. And also, I don't know, this is the thing with a Lou Lamoriello built team is that it limits your ceiling, at least in terms of talent. And then they lost Barry Trotz by their own decision. So they lost the X factor that turned them from a good, hardworking team to they can outplay all of their metrics and also outplay how they look on paper. Now they're just meh. They still have Matt Barzal, obviously. They still have some talent. Don't get me wrong. They have Horvat. They have guys, but they don't have enough. And I feel like this was the ceiling of the team that Chuck Fletcher in the final couple years of his tenure was trying to make the Flyers into. And then it just turned out that they were that, but also with none of the intangibles that the Islanders had. Mm-hmm. But this was always going to be the end game of the way the Islanders built their team. They built a team that had an absolute ceiling if everything was right. If the coaching went well, if the chemistry was there, their absolute ceiling was make it to the conference final and lose gamely to a better team. That was their ceiling. Now we're starting to see what their floor is.
Yeah, and the floor is real bad. So I am banking on a Flyers win tonight. I hope everyone enjoys the game. We will be back with post-game as soon as this goes final. Crossing our fingers on no OT, but we know how it goes between these two teams. Follow us right here on the YouTube so you don't miss post-game or any of our live shows. Hit that reminder bell so you get the notifications. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. That is where I do all my in-game tweeting. And follow the podcast as well, wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. All right, that's it for us. We'll be back with post-game. I'm Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.